Well, hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. This is Cindy Liu with CHRO Partners, and I'm joined today with David St. Louis. Welcome. So, David is strategic project leader type in the HR space. So he's kind of, has both sides of the brain going, both the data side as well as the business partner side, and building relationships and great in transformation. He's going to tell you more about his background in a minute, but today, we're going to cover a journey that he went through with Match Group and how they rolled out ChatGPT training to 600 of their top leaders. So this was a year ago, right, that you guys did this, and so you guys are way ahead of the curve. Um, so before we turn it over to the slides, David, is there something you can tell us about you that maybe we can't find on the internet, that chat can't find about you on the internet? Sorry to
Yeah, for sure. Hey, great to meet everybody. David St. Louis. A little bit about me. Professionally, I've always been drawn towards technology and transformation. Something that you can't find out about me personally. Was a long time ago on a MTV dance party. Just a little bit personally about me. You never expect it, but no, that was a long, long time ago. But no, I'm super excited to be here today. This is something that I'm really excited about talking about. My background is, like I said, half business partner, half COE, with a skew towards transformation and technology. So this project was something that was, very near and dear to my heart, and something that I'm hopefully is going to be very, helpful, impactful for your organizations.
Yeah.
And looking for the conversation today.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to the slides in a second, but if you join us today, feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from, what city, state, and if there's anything in particular you're interested in. But I'll tell you, David, the CHRO community is so interested in this topic of AI. So we just surveyed our community, and like I want to say 90% of the responses were like AI, 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 right? And so it's probably more overwhelming today than it was a year ago. At least I feel that way, right? There's
Yeah.
so many more models out there, and everybody's sharing about what they're doing, and so it's a confusing time. So I really like the simplicity of your story and kind of how you guys rolled that out. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this over to your slides. And if you're joining us, let us know if you can see the slides now. All right. So, all right, let's see. All right, David, over to you.
All right. Well, great. Hey, thanks again, Cindy, and really excited to be here and share the story with the team. Just really quickly, the agenda of what we're going to cover today. So go through a quick introduction about me and some of the places that I've worked along the way. Talk very, very briefly about AI and LLMs, large language models. Make sure that we're all grounded and, kind of talking the same language. So we'll spend a little bit of time there. Why companies are investing? Why does this matter? So this is something that, there's a lot of coverage right now. It is very much, if you go to any conference, you're going to hear a lot about AI. So, hey, why does this matter for, the business more broadly, but also for you as HR leaders? Then we'll go into our journey at Match Group specifically. So we're going to talk about our rollout process, lessons learned, and then any Q&A, at the end as well. So excited to share our story.
Yeah, awesome. Feel free to drop questions in the chat along the way, and if it makes sense for us to answer them along the way, we will. Otherwise, we can definitely grab them at the end. So, David, you've worked for some pretty amazing organizations.
I've been very fortunate in my career. I've worked with great companies, great brands. Something, I'd say common between all of them is, organizations, in, a state of transition and influx and transformation. So that's something that I'd say has definitely been, constant through my career. I tend to gravitate towards organizations that are building and really, evolving to meet the business demands. A great example of that was with Workday. I was supporting a global sales organization. One of the things that I did, moving from a more traditional sales organization to one truly at global scale, you know, recruiting about 20% headcount year over year, being able to use data to say, hey, here's how we can grow our sales leaders, from early career to our most senior complex deals in a way that helps them succeed and also decreases attrition. So I've been fortunate in my career to work with some really big transformational initiatives like that.
Mhm.
So that's something that really resonates with me. Then also bringing my technology and analytics background to be able to deliver as a business partner with all those organizations. On a personal note, I'm a huge Georgia Bulldog fan. So Go Dogs, you see that on the bottom left, and that's my family in Venice. Unfortunately, we were not invited to Jeff Bezos's wedding. That was before a little while ago, but that is us in Venice at the cathedral. So we'd love to travel.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining us today. We're anxious to hear the story.
My pleasure. So just to make sure that we're all grounded in understanding what is AI, what is a LLM or large language model. AI, it's effectively just technology. It's using machine learning to automate tasks, to simplify, to speed up process at scale. So you hear a lot about AI, and it can look in a lot of different ways. Whether it be something that you may be more familiar with, like a ChatGPT or Dolly for image generation, or Grammarly as you're writing documents and getting suggestions on how to be more concise in your writing. So AI is a very broad technology term that can encompass a lot of different things. Large language models specifically, or LLMs, those are a version of AI like a chat GPT that goes out and consumes lots and lots of data, lots of language from different places, whether it be the web, books, magazines, and then uses machine learning and AI to basically synthesize that data and then come back and be able to interact with the user in a way that feels very human and very natural. So if you use ChatGPT, that's what an LLM or large language model is. So it's using that data in a way to interact and come back with recommendations, suggestions, or responses in a way that feels very, very human and very natural.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you're joining us, thanks for joining us, Mark and Aiden and Tim. Looks like we got lots of Dallas in the house. Maybe drop in the chat what your favorite AI model or LLM tool is. Personally, of course, I'm a big ChatGPT fan. I've got the the paid version, not the operator version, but the plus, I believe it is. Is it plus or the pro? I think it's in any case, it's the $20 a month version, not the $200 one yet.
No.
And then I would say Notebook LM is like another one of my favorites when there's confidential data that I don't want the models learning off of. I pull that information into Notebook LM. And Notebook is an amazing podcast, by the way. So you can put all your data and your information in, and it'll create a perfect podcast. So yeah. So what about you, David? What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, ChatGPT for sure. I'm experimenting in other things. So Gemini, a little bit with Copilot right now, as well as Canva. So that's something, I've got kids. So that's something, just thinking of different design and graphics that come up for different life events, and also for work too. It's a really helpful tool to be able to help with that.
Looks like we got lots of votes for ChatGPT. We got Copilot, and yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Cool. All right, very good. Well, like I said, if you're out at any conference or hallway conversations, or keeping abreast of what's going on in the press, lots and lots of discussion about AI and how it's going to revolutionize and change work, and it is. I'm a firm believer of that. So what if you haven't? I definitely would encourage you. There's some great writings. Harvard Business Review has done a number of articles. Tons and tons of great information out there about, hey, here is how AI is really going to change and fundamentally change how work gets done in modern day organizations. So just on the right hand side, I mean, this is different areas within the HR space where AI is going to play a factor. I would argue almost everything at the end of the day. So it's something that behooves us as HR practitioners, as HR leaders, to really get ahead of it. Start thinking about, hey, what within the different areas within our team, how is this going to play, and then how do we help equip the team, structure the team to be able to maximize adoption and productivity, and get everybody comfortable to be able to deliver.
Yeah, it's interesting, like the entire, from recruiting, all the way to retirement, the entire life cycle, people are going to be feeling it. In fact, I just read an article, and here's the downside of AI, is that I'm reading so many articles that I can't remember who did it, but I've got them all stored in Notebook LM. And one of the things they talked about, this was either McKinsey or one of the big consulting firms. They're like, look, if you do nothing, like if you go on vacation or take a leave of absence for a year, right now probably this AI stuff is embedded in, I think they said like 5% of all our enterprise systems. Like if you come back in a year from now, don't quote me on the exact time frame, but it's going to be like 70%. Whether you do anything or not, even if you are like, I'm not using any AI, I'm not going to sign on to AI, it's going to be in the systems embedded.
Yeah, I firmly believe that. I mean, you see it not only just in terms of the day-to-day, but also we'll talk about this a little bit with agentic AI. AI evolving to be kind of a almost an employee or partner that's going to be your right-hand person, delivering work, and the implications of that at the office.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. So why does this matter? I mean, we talked about, hey, this is going to fundamentally change, how work gets done. So this is a case study looking at consultants. So business consultants, very talented people, professional space. And this was a case study by ChatGPT. I believe it was McKinsey that looked at consultants that used ChatGPT versus consultants that did not use ChatGPT. So on the left-hand side, you see the consultants that did not use ChatGPT versus on the right-hand side. And what they found was ultimately the consultants who used ChatGPT with their work were able to deliver faster and a higher quality output. And that's something as professionals, we're all looking to accomplish is, hey, how do we help our team be more effective and deliver more quickly? So this was a really great, data-driven example of how a company was really able to bring this to life in the professional space.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to poll people on, do you hope that this means you're not working a 60-hour week, or do you hope to pump out more work, right? Like which end of the spectrum are you on? Yeah,
for sure. What I've found in just some personal examples is it's a really great thought partner. So to be able to, that's something that where I'm excited about where it's going, is being able to use as a tool to really elevate and improve your quality of work as well as your speed of work too. So I've been able to do that with a number of different examples, and it really does help there. So what I'm going to do pivot next to is our journey specifically at Match. So Match Group, if you're not familiar, dating apps. So Match.com, Tinder, Hinge, global company, about 2,500 employees, 5 billion in revenue. We've got about 30 different apps globally. So if you're using a dating app, you're probably using one of Match's products. So personally, it was, I was found my person before the dating apps, but very, very popular. It's interesting. Over half of people now actually meet their partner through online and dating apps, which was something really interesting for me when I joined the company.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So where our journey started. So it started with executive sponsorship. And this is a really funny story. So Will Wu is our Chief Technology and Product Officer, a fanatic about AI and ChatGPT specifically. So he, was a firm believer that this was the direction of where business was going to revolutionize, how work gets done, how employees are effective. So, how he was able to do that, a funny example of how he did that was actually he was engaged at the time, and he had the ChatGPT was a tool he used a lot, so it knew him very personally, and it also knew his fiance, very personally as well. So he used ChatGPT to recommend, hey, I want to propose. Can you recommend the perfect way to propose? So just that level of detail, a funny example of that, but he trusted the tool that much to come back with a recommendation for something that personal and significant in his life.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. I'm going to use this. I'm going to go back and use this. I'm trying to talk my family into a second dog, and I've got pushed back. So I'm definitely going to use that tip.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I use personally too. So not to propose, or for me personally, we use it on trips. So if we're going to a new city, we'll map out, okay, hey, can you make recommendations? We're staying here. We're going to be visiting here. What would you recommend for the itinerary? And that's something that I would recommend for you as you're thinking about the journey and getting comfortable with the tool. start small. Do something that's personal for you that isn't as scary or as high stakes. Get comfortable with it, and then ultimately you can pivot that and parlay that to what does that look like in your professional space.
Yeah, not to drag on this point too long because I'm anxious to hear about the process that you guys took at Match, but I actually diagnosed a really bad cough I had earlier this year that the doctors could not diagnose, and I just kept talking to Chat and kept talking to it until it figured out what it was, and within days I was better. Yeah,
It is really interesting and really powerful.
yeah. All right, so
Okay, so executive sponsorship. So for us stakeholders, just a little bit about our brand. Obviously, privacy for us was really critical with our consumers. So we have very, very private, sensitive information, with our users. So first and foremost, we needed to protect that. So obviously, CEO, ELT as key stakeholders within the process. Making sure that our CIO and also our CISO, who's in that group, we're part of the process. The people team, hey, what does this mean in terms of how we deploy changing work skills, all of those different things, as well as legal. So all working in close coordination to get comfortable. And where we landed is we needed to make sure that whatever solution that we adopted needed to be secure, to respect the privacy, and it needed to be easy to use and then help us meet the business requirements. So we, ChatGPT at the time was an early leader in the space. So compared to Copilot or Gemini, that's one of the big reasons why we went with ChatGPT. But these were the key stakeholders that were in those meetings, making sure that we were comfortable with the solution that would basically meet our business requirements, but also do it in a way that protected our employee and consumer data.
Yeah, the message I have here is, and going back to your CIO being a big advocate, is that if you're in HR, don't wait, right? If the CIO or the tech team is like overloaded, don't wait. You've got to push for this this change. It's coming. And I just had lunch with a CISO, and he was like, "Don't wait for IT." He's like, "Just bring it. You got to bring it and propose it."
Absolutely so. And that was early in the discussion. So this was more on the, hey, how do we use the, ChatGPT as a tool? The conversation's evolving to say, okay, it's how do we pivot from this being a tool, but how does this, you really fundamentally shift, how work gets done, and team structure, org structure, skills. So that's the direction that it is going. And, other companies are further along on that journey,
Right.
but it is definitely headed in that direction. Okay. So this is an eye chart, but this is our rollout process. So I wanted to touch on this. So we, did several things to roll out. So basically, one, we made it sure we picked our top 600 leaders and said, hey, these are our early adopters that we're going to, roll it out to. We made sure that there was a baseline training that all of those leaders had to go through that talked about privacy, how to use the tool on the basic level. But then we had deeper dive sessions in all of these different areas. So one, deeper dive in the foundations of what ChatGPT is and how it works. Effective prompt engineering. How do you write an effective prompt? And that's something that in the tool, there are tips and tricks in terms of you really getting the most out of the tool about, setting context of who you are as a persona. What kind of information do you want to pull into the analysis? What do you want your output to look like? So getting really good about, hey, what does an effective prompt look like? And then the next session for folks that wanted to attend is how do you use it for data analysis? So, workforce planning is a really great use case. LLMs, ChatGPT is really good at taking a lot of information and distilling it and finding trends and themes. So that was something that we offered a course in partnership with OpenAI about how to do proper data analysis with the tool. And then the last piece was GPTs. So that was something that was new for me. So that was really helpful. But basically, the best way to describe GPT is it's an assistant in a lot of ways that you can tailor. And so for a specific task, you can set it up and it will automate that work. So right now I am on the job search. So something that I have GPTs for is basically resume critique, interview prep, that sort of thing. Or looking research for different companies along the way. So this was our strategy. We have lots of information, presentations, slides on demand, resources, and really tried to make, as much information available to the team to get comfortable as they prepare to use the tool.
Yeah, sounds like OpenEye was really helpful in helping you put this curriculum together. I imagine that people are going to want a copy of this. So if you're interested in a copy of these slides, feel free to reach out to David directly on LinkedIn, and you can DM him and he can get you a copy of these slides. I will say that these GPTs are amazing, right? Like it is like having a personal assistant on a specific topic. In fact, our mastermind group tomorrow evening will be creating one of the first GPTs. So GPT will be something around, how to help an HR business partner prep for like a C-suite meeting,
Yep.
So that they can be viewed as a consultative advisor. Right, so it's really amazing, and I know you've got some addendum pieces that if we have time, that we'll come back to and dive into that a little deeper. But talk to me a little bit about is it lessons learned?
Oh, sure, yeah, of course. So a couple things. So use cases, early use case that I think everybody on the call will relate to is engagement data. So we go through engagement process, at least once a year, sometimes monthly. So this was something that was with one of our HR leaders. She was doing a monthly engagement pulse, spending a lot of time basically trying to go through the information, sort through the data. ChatGPT was, with the corporate license, being able to put in sensitive our engagement feedback, and then come back with, hey, here are the key themes, and this is how it has shifted over time. Because that is something that ChatGPT does a really nice job of, is remembering the past and then being able to tease out, okay, here's what we talked about last time, and here's how it's shifted, today. So that was an early use case where we were just struggling to keep afloat with all of the information and comments that we were getting, and it was a really effective way for us to upload that information and then tease out, okay, here are the key themes to be aware of.
Yeah, I think the joke is like, oh, we're finally done with engagement survey. It's time to start again next year. Right. So, how much time do you guys think you saved? Any
Oh
guesstimate?
goodness, at least a couple hours a week, just on that one leader. So you think VP level, that turns into real dollars really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So multiply that out across different leaders, different teams. There are huge savings across the organization.
Yeah, I was talking to a CEO of one of he's been on several panels and spoke to our group, and he was saying that they did the same thing, and they created a podcast about their engagement results. And I'm like, I bet it was Notebook LM. Notebook has like amazing ability to create podcasts based on the documents you load in.
That's very cool. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
fun. All right.
Excellent. Okay, so lessons learned. So this is small, so I'll definitely talk through it. Executive sponsorship. I mean, a lot of this is consistent with really great project management, program management, but making sure that you have the right stakeholders and the right sponsors involved early in the project, absolutely critical. So Will Wu, the leader who proposed to his fiance using ChatGPT, being front and center, saying, "Hey, this is going to help us, move forward as a business."
What do you think of organizations that don't have that sponsor, right? The C-suite's going, let's just wait and see. Like,
Yeah,
what advice be?
my advice would be, show them the value. So, figure out the leaders, understand if it's the CFO, the CEO, somebody on the tech team, help them connect the dots and say, hey, here's how it's going to help you deliver your business goals. If not, flip side, your competitors are using this and we're falling behind. And really, that helps create that sense of urgency. Then ultimately, if they personally aren't using it or are skeptical, folks in their network are using it. So that would be a recommendation is, get them plugged into their peers and say, hey, help me understand how you guys are using it.
You talked about the key stakeholders, getting involved. About how long did that process take to get everybody aligned?
We moved pretty quickly. So from the time that we pitched it to the time we started implementing, it was probably, 6 months, less than 6 months total process.
Okay.
So, it can move quickly. Sense of urgency. I mean, this is something you mentioned earlier. The industry is moving quickly. So this is one that you can't really take. My advice would be, definitely jump in sooner than later, because it is moving so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the baseline training, there's probably some similar components, but I bet there's new things.
For sure. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the baseline training, that was helpful. Just making sure everybody's kind of level set in terms of how to use the tool, as well as privacy considerations. For example, don't put, sensitive employee or customer data in the free versions. Make sure that you're using the version that's approved for corporate.
Mhm.
The deep dive trainings were a huge success. Creating a community, that was something that for all of our early adopters, we created a Slack channel, and that's something that anybody who has access now has access to that Slack channel. But using the Cadre, methodology or kind of approach was super helpful for us. So
Mhm.
that was something, if you were like, hey, I'm just getting started with, I don't know really what to do. It was a forum where you could go and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Does anybody have suggestion or can help?
Mhm.
And that proved to be very, very effective. And we also highlighted, innovative ways that people were using the tool.
Mhm.
So if we saw a use case where it was like, hey, that's really cool, we highlighted it and celebrated it. And what it did is it created, you know, kind of synergies with other teams
Mhm.
about, oh, hey, this team is doing it, using it this way. I see that could be applicable for my team over here.
Mhm.
So we celebrated those really innovative ways that folks were using it. Like I said, folks may be a little bit nervous about AI. I mean, there's a lot of press right now about, hey, people are going to lose their jobs because of AI. So we had to address that, and it's really shifting the conversation to, really the way we should look at it is it's a tool that's going to either elevate the work or help you be more effective. And that helped. That helped. Definitely, there are still some concerns, and I think that's going to continue. But the more that you can shift it to, hey, this is going to help you be more effective, it makes it more constructive for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Validating the output. So, the tool can make mistakes. So it's important to have a person or human in the loop, to make sure that you are looking at the outputs, whether it be, text generated coming out or data. You got to spot check it because sometimes it does make mistakes. There has been some discussion about biases too. So having somebody, in the tool looking for, any signs of bias is important as well. And then, just like I said a couple times, being responsible with the data, making sure that it is, that you're using the right tools that have been approved by your, CIO, IT team, privacy, legal organizations. So those were some key lessons learned for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really important piece, and where a lot of companies are getting sort of held up. We're going to be having a session with a CISO and talking about, like, how do you approach a CISO as an HR person, right? There's a certain language that comes with that, and so look out for that show. All right, David, such great lessons learned here. I have a question, and feel free, you all, to put your questions in the chat. Sometimes there's a little bit of delay, so we can't see it all. Looks like we've got more Copilot votes and definitely more ChatGPT, but I'm curious, how did you all determine success, right? Like, how did you decide what success looked like from here?
Yeah. So I'd say it's twofold. Early, it was, are folks using the tool? So that was something that we could see, chats initiated,
Mhm.
and be able to track the data trend over time. So that's, just helpful to say, hey, as we rolled out, we did a lot of qualitative analysis, through the training process, survey work, was
Mhm.
this helpful? Are you using it? How are
Mhm.
you using it? And then from there, something that was a good way for us to demonstrate value were those innovative use cases.
Mhm.
So for example, one that sticks, comes out was, on our training, being able to find through the data analysis through ChatGPT, which of our training offerings were most effective in terms of delivering outcomes.
Hmm.
So that was a really cool use case with our learning team,
Can you
partnering with our IT team.
tell me more about that?
Yeah.
That's
With our developers, there are different, training platforms, that we use internally. And for us, we can basically use, things like, hey, how many, products does a particular dev or product engineer, ship, that are quality in a given time period.
Mhm.
So we could correlate, have the ChatGPT look at the data, look at the different training, you know, for our employees, which of our developers had gone through those different trainings,
Interesting.
and then correlate out to, okay, which ones are the most productive from a productivity time. It's correlation, not necessarily causation. So you always have to, be aware of that, but being able to see, okay, within that population, is there a correlation of what's going on there?
Okay.
And ChatGPT was effective to look at the big sum of data to be able to help us identify what those trends were.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Looks like I got a question from Mark. For internal AI with the company, high level, how does this work for privacy and sharing information internally, including HR? Let's see. For internal.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us as a team, and I can only speak for us with our
Mhm.
how we use it. Um, Generally we don't see what other teams are entering into chat. So that's something where if an employee is working on a project, that stays with the employee.
Mhm.
The use cases that I mentioned, that was something that we proactively went out and basically were able to find those use cases.
Mhm.
So if I'm Mark, if I'm getting at the heart of your question, it is something where it is relatively confidential in terms of how employees are using it within the tool itself.
Okay. Tim has a question. Did your company create the AI training or did you use an outside source? And if so, who did you use?
It's a great question, Tim. So we partnered directly with OpenAI. So we cheated on this one a little bit, but they were extremely gracious and supportive and worked with us. So they were a really fantastic partner through the
So
process.
they customized the program
They did. Yep.
organization. I think that, I mean, not to take anything away from them, but the heavy lifting is all with all the alignment, right?
It is for sure.
Internally.
Absolutely so.
Yeah. And the thing is, if we're not putting the guardrails in place, employers are going to use them anyways. I bet I mean, we all know people who are doing it anyways, and I know there's a lot more guardrails where you can't email yourself, documents from work anymore. It'll get caught. So the CISO office is going, I see you. You can't. We're going to block you from sending that to yourself. But it's still happening. So getting ahead of this, even if your C-suite team is not talking about it, I think it's super important. So thanks for the question, Tim. All right, so if you want to stay, we have some addendums, right, in the back that,
We do.
yeah, I think this is where some of the fun stuff comes in. In fact, you want to pop down to
Absolutely.
minutes, yeah.
So earlier I mentioned prompt engineering. That was something that really found foundational in terms of getting the most out of ChatGPT. So with our training sessions, that was really outside of the first session talking about fundamentals. We spent a lot of time working with the team to make sure they were writing effective prompts. So with that, with a prompt, it is basically how do you interact with the chat and kind of set the context needed to get the best information back from the system. So foundations of strong prompting, giving clear specific tasks or goals, giving it a persona. So this was something that was really interesting for me. So the chat, you communicating who you are or how you want the GPT to interact with you makes a lot of difference. So for example, if I'm writing something and say, hey, I am the chief HR officer for Match Group, ChatGPT is going to think and behave differently than say, hey, I'm the chief marketing officer.
Mhm.
It's going to put that lens of, okay, how are you going to tailor that response based on who you are, as a user, and then being very specific about what do you want. How do you want this data presented to you? Are you looking for a table? Are you looking for something, a short executive summary? So as much detail as you can provide of, hey, here's the output that I'm looking for in a way that's going to be most effective. If you do that, then an effective prompt, explaining here's what I'm looking to do, here's who I am as a persona, and then here's how I want the output to be structured. That really helps the tool get you really good information in a way that is very, very helpful to use.
Yeah.
So another learning through this is it is an iterative process. So that is something the tool learns over time. So your first try may be a little bit different from ultimately what the output is. So over time and through refinement, ChatGPT does a good job of learning kind of what you're looking for. but also you have the ability as a user to say, hey, this is good, but not exactly what I'm looking for. Can you adjust it? Can you tweak it? And it gets really, really good over time, kind of learning those trends to really understand you to deliver what you're looking for. So that was like key learning for us is, hey, use it. The more you use it, the more effective it is in terms of really understanding what you're trying to get to and delivering that more consistently.
Makes sense.
Yep. And then here's an example of prompting. So this was specifically for us. So on that top example, not a great prompt. Hey, tell me about Match Group.
Mm-hmm.
Better one with context and persona. Hey, I am a customer success manager at OpenAI. I'm running a kickoff session tomorrow, and I need to understand the latest trends in their industry. So it's better. And then the last one you see provides a lot more detail, tells exactly how you want that information, basically laid out, as well as additional information about recent trends in the industry, anything in the press that I should be aware of. So as much detail that you can provide as you're creating those prompts, it will help you deliver a much better, a much richer output that will be really helpful.
Yeah. One of the things that we're going to go through tomorrow night at our mastermind meeting is putting together a custom GPT. We're not going to actually go through all of it, but there's some big steps, that need to come along with it. But this coach that I work with, Julie Chanel, she has this course called Second Brain. And I love this prompt. It's like, I am, and then role. What's your role? Right. So title, just like you said. Who helps? Who are you helping? Right. Your audience. Achieve. Result. What's the result you're helping them? By guiding them through a framework or, whatever it is that you're teaching them. Protecting them from their mistakes and delivering output, right? That however you want the output to come out, right? Whether it's a PowerPoint or bullet points or a PDF, all in the voice of, and then your style, right? So just like you said, the more you can tell it, the better it can respond. And I often think about leadership and how I'm like, oh, no wonder my employees are so confused because if chat can't understand what I'm saying, I'm sure these poor employees are like, what is she saying to me?
That's funny. Yeah, it is really neat, and that's as an HR professional, that was something that was helpful for me is being able to flex those different personas.
Yeah.
Sometimes, hey, I'm looking at it from the lens of the CHRO. Sometimes I'm looking at the lens from our CEO or our chief learning officer, chief operating officer, and being able to kind of flex that and say, okay, help me think through this with those different lenses is extremely helpful, and being able to pull in the outside resources to kind of back it up as well. Super helpful.
All right. So what's your last piece of advice here?
Last piece of just best practices, clear objectives, be specific and detailed. We just talked about the different personas, output. So that's something you mentioned, PowerPoint, or tables, list, whatever, bulleted list, really whatever is most effective for you. Breaking down complex tests, that's interesting. So that is definitely true. Don't overwhelm it. It tends to do a little bit better if you can kind of walk it along for then multiple prompts instead of putting everything in one ginormous prompt. Examples, and then it's okay to interact with it, challenge it, say, hey, this is great. Where tell me what your sources were, for this analysis, for sure. And you can also, on the flip side of that too, say, if you are doing an analysis, you can feed and say, hey, I want you to look at these specific publications and guide it to that. It will actually, really hone in its search on those different, pieces of information during the analysis.
That's awesome. I've even heard about, right? Like this is like my career depends on you getting this right. And some of the experts and the gurus are saying to even do that kind of emotional prompting, which I think is super interesting. But quick poll: Does anybody ever? Did you guys all say thank you and please to your chat? I do. All right, David. Thank you so much. And if you're a chief HR officer or chief people officer, and you're interested in going deeper dive into this, we've got our big CHRO event this fall that is completely focused on this topic of AI and a framework called the Usage Framework that Chris McKay developed. Chris is a Davos speaker and a LinkedIn instructor, and I think this kind of warm up, David, is going to help our audience once they show up at that conference. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and the journey. And we will definitely drop David's link into the show notes so that you guys can link in with David and show your appreciation. All right.
No, Cindy, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. This is something that I'm really passionate about. So absolutely, please open invite. I'm happy to jump on a call and talk through our experience through this. So great to meet everybody. Looking forward to connecting. And like I said, Cindy, thank you very much again for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see everybody. Thanks for showing up, Tim, Terry, Mark, lots of people. Lisa, awesome. All right, we'll see you guys.